Life has a way of shattering us, not gently, not softly, but in ways that shake us to the very foundation of who we are, in ways that tear away everything we believed we understood about ourselves, everything we held as certain, everything we clung to for security and stability. And in that instant, in that precise moment when the earth beneath our feet vanishes, when the barriers we constructed around our hearts fall away, when the identity we built so meticulously begins to dissolve, we feel insignificant, we feel helpless. We feel as though existence itself has turned its back on us, as though we have been left by life to navigate the shadows on our own. And yet, it is exactly in this shadow, in this moment of absolute and total shattering, that something extraordinary begins to unfold, something we could never have predicted, something that alters us irrevocably. For shattering is not the conclusion of who we are. It is the gateway to who we are destined to become. It is the passage through which we must travel to uncover the truth that has been residing inside us all along. The truth of our own fortitude, our own endurance, our own ability to emerge from the ruins of what was and forge something new, something genuine, something that mirrors the deepest core of our existence. And so when life shatters us, when it destroys the illusions we have carried, when it removes the personas we have worn to belong in a world that does not always comprehend us, we are being offered a gift, though it does not appear like one, though it appears like devastation, like agony, like the conclusion of everything we once recognized. We are being offered the chance to witness ourselves as we genuinely are, not as the world has instructed us to be, not as fear has shaped us to become, but as the boundless, mighty, divine beings we were born to be. And this is the passage of shattering. This is the way of metamorphosis. This is the timeless alchemy that converts anguish into insight, shadow into illumination, and fragmentation into completeness. When we are shattered, we are compelled to face the aspects of ourselves we have disregarded, the wounds we have concealed, the terrors we have declined to meet, the truths we have hidden even from our own consciousness. And in that confrontation, uncomfortable as it may be, frightening as it might seem, we begin to comprehend that shattering is not a condemnation from existence. It is not an indication that we are feeble or undeserving or incapable. It is a message, a summons from the most profound part of our spirit, telling us that something within us is prepared to emerge, something is prepared to be freed, something is prepared to be transformed. And the only way for that transformation to happen is through the breakdown of what no longer benefits us, the dismantling of the false frameworks we have constructed, the releasing of the identities that were never genuinely ours to carry. For we spend so much of our existence living in accordance with the demands of others, in accordance with the blueprints we were given, in accordance with the parts we were instructed to perform. And in doing so, we lose connection with the core of who we are. We forget the voice of our own spirit. We forget the strength that exists within us, the strength that requires no confirmation, no acceptance, no authorization from the external realm. And so life, in its infinite understanding, in its limitless compassion, shatters us apart, breaks us open, so that we can finally witness what has been concealed beneath the exterior, so that we can finally recall what we have forgotten, so that we can finally return to the truth of our own being. And this is not harshness, this is devotion. This is the cosmos leading us back to ourselves, back to the origin of our own power, back to the heart of our own existence. The encounter of shattering removes all pretense, all exterior, all deception, and what persists is the raw, undiluted truth of who we are. And in that rawness, in that openness, in that transparency, we uncover something remarkable. We uncover that we are not characterized by what we have accomplished, by what we have gathered, by what we have constructed in the external realm. We are characterized by how we react to the moments when everything collapses, by how we ascend when we have been brought down, by how we persist when we feel we cannot take another stride, by how we reconstruct when the frameworks of our lives have been reduced to fragments. And this This is where genuine power is located, not in the lack of struggle, but in the readiness to confront it, not in the evasion of pain, but in the bravery to move through it, not in the opposition to shattering, but in the acceptance of the process, in the comprehension that every fracture, every wound, every moment of hopelessness is an invitation to descend deeper, to look within, to reveal the layers of conditioning, terror, and restriction that have prevented us from living wholly, from loving entirely, from embracing the totality of our existence. And when we receive this invitation, when we cease fleeing from the shattering and instead turn toward it with inquisitiveness, with compassion, with a readiness to learn, we begin to perceive that the fissures in our lives are not defects. They are portals. They are gateways through which illumination can enter, through which truth can be disclosed, through which our authentic self can finally surface. And this surfacing, this awakening, this transformation is the most profound gift we can obtain, for it is the gift of understanding ourselves, genuinely, profoundly, entirely, without the distortions of self-image, without the restrictions of terror, without the limitations of who we believed we had to be. Shattering instructs us about the temporary nature of all things, about the passing quality of everything we hold on to, about the fantasy of dominance we so desperately attempt. To sustain, and in absorbing these teachings, we come to grasp that the only permanence in existence is transformation. The only certainty is ambiguity, and the only real safety we can ever possess is the safety that originates from within, from understanding that no matter what occurs, no matter what is lost, no matter how many times we are shattered, we have the ability to persist, to adjust, to reconstruct, to ascend. And this ability, this endurance, this unbreakable inner power is not something we gain from the external realm. It is not something we absorb from texts or instructors or masters. It is something we uncover within ourselves when we are driven beyond our boundaries, when we are compelled to dig deeper than we ever believed conceivable, when we are called upon to summon bravery from a place we did not know was there. And in summoning that bravery, in accessing that power, in drawing from that wellspring of inner force, we understand we are far more able, far more resilient, far more mighty than we ever conceived, and this understanding changes everything. It alters our relationship with ourselves, with existence, with the obstacles we face. It transforms us from casualties of circumstance into architects of our own truth, from inactive receivers of what life offers us into engaged contributors in the formation of our own fate. And this is the nature of true empowerment. This is the significance of self-command. This is the way of the warrior who comprehends that the most significant battles are not waged in the external realm, but in the internal terrain of the heart and mind and spirit. When we are shattered, we are also humbled. We are brought to our knees. We are reminded of our humanness, of our fragility, of our need for communion, for empathy, for mercy. And in this humility, in this acknowledgement of our own delicateness, we become more receptive, more understanding, more aware of the struggles of others. For we know what it is to endure. We know what it is to feel adrift. We know what it is to doubt everything we once accepted. And this knowing, this shared encounter of suffering, creates a connection between us and the rest of humanity. It dissolves the fantasy of isolation. It reminds us that we are all walking this way together, that we are all being shattered and remade in our own manners, that we are all searching for significance, for intention, for a sense of belonging in a world that often feels turbulent and unpredictable, and so shattering not only transforms us individually, it also binds us to something greater than ourselves, to the collective human encounter, to the universal passage of suffering and awakening that has been occurring since the dawn of time. And in recognizing this, in feeling this connection, we find comfort, we find power, we find the bravery to persist, knowing that we are not isolated, that others have walked this way before us, that others are walking it now, and that the insight we obtain from our own shattering can be a beacon for those who are still navigating the darkness. And this is how we transform anguish into intention, how we turn our wounds into understanding, how we use our own suffering as a source of contribution, of restoration, of service to the world. The shattering we encounter compels us to reassess everything, to doubt the convictions we have held, the principles we have adopted, the objectives we have pursued. And in this reassessment, in this doubting, we begin to perceive what is genuinely significant, what genuinely matters, what is worth striving for, and what is simply distraction, diversion, fantasy. And this discernment, this understanding, this capacity to distinguish between what is fundamental and what is shallow is one of the most profound gifts of shattering, for it permits us to realign our lives with our genuine intention, to redirect our vitality toward what authentically nourishes our spirit, to release what no longer benefits us, and to welcome what brings us closer to our authentic self. And this process of releasing, of surrendering, of letting go of what we have outgrown is not simple. It requires bravery. It requires faith. It requires confidence in the unknown, in the unseen, in the revealing of a way that we cannot yet perceive clearly. But when we do release, when we do surrender our hold on what was, when we do yield to the current of life, we create room for something new to arrive. We create the circumstances for transformation, for expansion, for the flowering of our greatest potential. And this is the contradiction of shattering, that in losing, we acquire, in yielding, we find power, in collapsing, we come together in a manner that is more integrated, more complete, more aligned with the truth of who we are. Shattering also discloses to us the character of connection, the ways in which we hold on to things, to individuals, to concepts, to identities, believing that they define us, believing that without them we are nothing. And when those connections are broken, when those things are removed, we experience alarm, we mourn, we feel as though a part of ourselves has been taken. And yet, as time moves forward, as we move through the anguish, as we learn to navigate existence without what we believed we required, we uncover something striking. We uncover that we are still here, we are still complete, we are still capable of happiness, of affection, of intention. And this uncovering is freeing, for it releases us from the confinement of reliance, from the conviction that our value is contingent upon external elements, from the terror that we cannot endure without certain things or individuals or circumstances. And in this liberation, we find genuine independence, not the independence that comes from separation or disconnection, but the independence that comes from understanding ourselves so profoundly, so entirely, that we no longer require anything outside of us to authenticate our being, to affirm our worth, to grant us authorization to be who we are. And this self-reliance, this inner completeness, this sense of being whole within ourselves is the basis of all genuine power, all genuine tranquility, all genuine satisfaction. For when we are no longer reliant on the external realm for our sense of self, we become immovable, we become liberated, we become the commanders of our own lives. The passage through shattering is also a passage into the depths of our own mind, into the shadow dimensions of ourselves that we have rejected, suppressed, or declined to recognize. And as we descend into these depths, as we face the aspects of ourselves that we have concealed away, we may encounter terror, guilt, remorse, rage, sorrow, all the feelings we have tried so hard to evade, and it is enticing to turn away, to withdraw, to close ourselves off once again. But if we can find the bravery to remain, to be with these feelings, to permit them to move through us without condemnation or opposition, we begin to heal, we begin to integrate, we begin to reclaim the lost pieces of our spirit. And in this reclamation, in this integration, we become complete. Not in the sense of being flawless or without imperfections, but in the sense of being total, of embracing all dimensions of ourselves, the illumination and the shadow, the power and the fragility, the happiness and the grief. And it is this completeness, this integration, this acceptance of our full humanity that permits us to exist with genuineness, with integrity, with a sense of inner tranquility that is not reliant on circumstances. And this is the genuine meaning of self-acceptance, not a shallow affirmation of our positive traits, but a profound, unconditional embrace of everything we are, everything we have been, and everything we are becoming. Shattering challenges us to redefine our relationship with achievement, with accomplishment, with the external indicators of value that society has. Instructed us to prize for when we are shattered, when we have lost what we labored so hard to construct, when we have failed in ways we never anticipated. We are compelled to ask ourselves what achievement genuinely means. Is it the accumulation of riches, position, acknowledgement? Or is it something more profound, something more meaningful, something that cannot be measured or calculated? And in asking this inquiry, in sitting with the discomfort of not knowing the response, we begin to alter our perspective. We begin to understand that genuine achievement is not about what we accomplish in the external realm, but about who we become in the progression, about the individual we are when no one is observing, about the integrity with which we exist, the empathy with which we treat others, the bravery with which we confront our terrors. And this redefinition of achievement, this alteration in principles, is freeing, for it releases us from the endless striving, the perpetual comparison, the relentless pursuit of more, and it permits us to find satisfaction in the present instant, to value what we have, to respect the passage we are on, to acknowledge that every stride, every struggle, every moment of shattering is part of the way, part of the progression, part of the revealing of our unique destiny. In the moments of deepest shattering, when we feel we have lost everything, when we feel we have nothing left to offer, when we feel we cannot persist, we are actually standing at the threshold of metamorphosis, at the boundary of a precipice. And we have a selection. We can turn back, withdraw into terror, into comfort, into the familiar patterns that no longer benefit us, or we can step forward into the unknown, into the ambiguity, into the vast potential of what could be. And this selection, this determination to move forward despite the terror, despite the uncertainty, despite the anguish, is the most brave act we can undertake, for it requires us to have faith in something we cannot perceive, to believe in something we cannot yet prove, to have confidence that even though we do not know what lies ahead, even though we do not have all the responses, even though we feel shattered and delicate and uncertain, we are being directed, we are being sustained, we are being held by a force that is greater than ourselves, by the intelligence of existence itself, by the understanding of the cosmos, by the affection that underpins all of being. And when we take that stride, when we make that leap, when we yield to the unknown, we uncover that we are not falling, we are soaring, we are ascending, we are expanding into a version of ourselves that is more genuine, more mighty, more alive than we ever believed conceivable. The shattering we encounter is not random, it is not arbitrary, it is not without significance. It is exactly what we need in order to develop, in order to evolve, in order to become who we are meant to be. And while it may not feel like a gift in the instant, while it may feel like condemnation or harshness or misfortune, if we can alter our perspective, if we can perceive it through the eyes of understanding rather than the eyes of terror, we begin to comprehend that every challenge, every loss, every moment of anguish is serving an intention, is instructing us something, is preparing us for what comes next. And this comprehension, this alteration in perception, transforms our relationship with suffering. It transforms suffering from something we evade at all costs into something we can absorb from, something we can develop through, something we can use as fuel for our own metamorphosis. And this is the way of the spiritual warrior. The one who comprehends that existence is not about evading anguish, but about meeting it with bravery, with elegance, with an open heart. The one who knows that power is not the lack of fragility, but the readiness to be fragile, to be receptive, to be genuine, to be human. And in this readiness, in this receptiveness, in this genuineness, we find genuine strength. Not the strength to dominate or control or compel, but the strength to be, to exist wholly, to show up entirely, to exist with integrity, with intention, with affection. Shattering also instructs us about transience, about the temporary character of all things, about the fact that nothing endures eternally, not happiness, not grief, not achievement, not failure, not pleasure, not anguish. And in comprehending this, in genuinely grasping the temporary character of being, we learn to hold things more gently, to value them while they are here without holding on to them, to release them when it is time without opposition. And this capacity to flow with existence, to embrace transformation, to welcome the constant movement and metamorphosis that is the character of truth, is a form of understanding, a form of liberation, a form of tranquility. For when we cease fighting against the unavoidable, when we cease trying to freeze time or hold on to what is already passing, we can finally relax, we can finally be present, we can finally appreciate the instant we are in without worrying about what comes next, without mourning what has been lost, without anxiously trying to dominate an outcome that is ultimately beyond our dominance. And in this relaxation, in this presence, in this yielding to the current of existence, we find a profound, enduring tranquility. A tranquility that is not reliant on circumstances, a tranquility that is not disturbed by the rises and falls of existence, a tranquility that comes from understanding, profoundly and immovably, that no matter what occurs, we are well, we are complete, we are sufficient. The individual who surfaces from shattering is not the same individual who entered it. They cannot be, for they have been transformed by the fire, by the pressure, by the progression of being shattered down and reconstructed. And this metamorphosis is visible not only in their actions, but in their presence, in the manner they carry themselves, in the manner they speak, in the manner they relate to others. There is a profundity to them now, a centeredness, a quiet power that was not there before. They are no longer seeking confirmation from the external realm. They are no longer performing for acceptance. They are no longer concealing behind personas or pretenses. They are simply being genuinely, unapologetically, entirely, and this genuineness is compelling. It draws individuals in. It inspires others. It grants authorization for others to do the same, to drop their own personas, to welcome their own truth, to step into their own strength. And in this manner, our own shattering, our own metamorphosis, becomes a catalyst for the shattering and metamorphosis of others. It creates a ripple effect, a wave of awakening that spreads outward, touching lives, changing hearts, elevating awareness. And this is the highest intention of suffering, not to keep us trapped in anguish, but to liberate us into truth, into affection, into the completeness of our being, and to inspire others to do the same. Shattering discloses that we are not our circumstances, we are not our history, we are not our failures, we are not our losses. We are the consciousness that observes all of these things. We are the awareness that remains constant even as everything else transforms. We are the eternal observer to the revealing of our own lives. And when we identify with this consciousness, with this awareness, with this eternal dimension of ourselves, we understand that nothing external can genuinely harm us. Nothing can diminish us. Nothing can define us unless we permit it to. For we are not the waves on the exterior of the sea. We are the sea itself, vast, profound, unchanging. And the waves, the storms, the turbulence, they come and they go, they ascend and they fall. But the sea persists always, and so do we always, beneath the exterior drama of our lives. Beneath the anguish and the happiness, the achievement and the failure, the shattering and the reconstructing, there is a stillness, a silence, a presence that is untouched by any of it. Connect with this stillness. When we rest in this silence, when we abide in this presence, we find a tranquility that surpasses comprehension, a power that cannot be shaken, an affection that knows no boundaries. And this is what shattering ultimately discloses to us. Not that we are feeble, but that we are invincible. Not that we are shattered, but that we are complete. Not that we are lost, but that we are found. Found by ourselves. Found in ourselves, found as ourselves. And in this finding, in this acknowledgement, In this remembering, we are finally, genuinely, entirely liberated. The way of shattering is the way of awakening. And though it is not a way we would choose willingly, though, it is not a way we would walk if given another option. It is the way that leads us home, home to ourselves, home to our truth, home to the sacred heart of our being, where all responses reside, where all tranquility dwells, where all affection originates. And so we do not resist the shattering. We do not flee from it. We do not condemn it. Instead, we bow to it. We respect it. We thank it for the gift it brings, the gift of self-discovery, the gift of metamorphosis, the gift of becoming who we were always meant to be. And in this acceptance, in this gratitude, in this yielding, we find that shattering is not the conclusion. It is the beginning of an existence lived with more consciousness, more genuineness, more bravery, more affection. And as we walk this new way, as we step into this new version of ourselves, we carry with us the understanding of our shattering, the power of our endurance, the illumination of our awakening, and we know with every fiber of our being that we are not shattered, we are shattering open to existence, open to affection, open to the infinite possibilities that await us when we finally have the bravery to be who we genuinely are.